This is The Space Shot, episode 307 for March 17th, 2018. Irwin, Mattingly, and Vanguard 1. I'm John Molnix. First off for today, I've got two birthdays I want to mention. Well, three, I suppose. The first is American astronaut James Irwin, who was born on March 17th, 1930. He flew on Apollo 15, a mission I talked about back in episodes 73 and 77, among numerous others. Irwin passed away in 1991. He was the first Apollo astronaut to pass away. The second birthday I want to mention is another American astronaut, Ken Mattingly. Mattingly was born on March 17, 1936, and flew on Apollo 16, STS-4, and STS-51C. Mattingly was originally due to fly on Apollo 13, but was bumped because it was wrongly thought that he had contracted the measles. Interestingly, Ken Mattingly is played by actor Gary Sinise in the movie Apollo 13, and Sinise was also born on March 17th. Happy birthday to both Ken and Gary. Mattingly's oral history interviews are available through the NASA Johnson Space Center Oral History Project website. If you've yet to check it out, do so as soon as you've finished listening to today's episode. I'm linking to Mattingly's interviews in the show notes. They're a really fun read. Sinise also narrated the excellent miniseries When We Left Earth. If you haven't seen this 6-part show, I'd highly recommend checking it out. The restoration of some of this archival footage looks beautiful on high-def screens. If you're a teacher looking to share something that's historically relevant and inspiring, check it out. Now for some launch history. 60 years ago today, on March 17th, 1958, Vanguard 1 lifted off from Cape Canaveral. This was the second satellite to be launched by the United States and was the first Vanguard satellite to reach orbit. The Vanguard name referred both to the launch vehicle and the satellite that it was sending into orbit. The two previous Vanguard attempts had ended in failure, one on the launch pad and another nearly a minute into flight. I've seen one of the flight-ready backups for Vanguard 1 at the Cosmosphere in Kansas, and it's a cool-looking little spacecraft. It's a sphere with a highly polished surface that's interrupted by small solar cells and antennae that protrude out quite a bit. Little is the operative word for the Vanguard spacecraft. It's pretty small. It's only 6.5 inches or 16.5 centimeters in diameter and weighs 3.22 pounds or 1.46 kilograms. Its small size when compared to the relatively massive Sputnik meant that Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev called it the grapefruit satellite. Well, this little grapefruit is still in orbit 60 years after its launch. That's an incredible feat. It's the oldest orbiting satellite and a monument to the early days of the space race. Vanguard 1 returned geodetic measurements of Earth through the analysis of the spacecraft's orbits. Geodesy is the study of Earth from space, and it helps scientists understand the exact shape of our planet, as well as its orientation in space, and the planet's gravity field. I've talked about geodesy before, and I'm going to be linking to the relevant shows and articles in the show notes. The solar-powered transmitter on Vanguard 1 continued to operate until May of 1964, outlasting the small battery-powered source that stopped working in June of 1958. Hey everybody, do me a favor before you go. Send me an email with topics you'd like to see discussed, ideas for interviews, and any burning questions you need to have answered. As I'm gearing up to move into the second year of the podcast, I'd love to dive into topics in greater detail with more guests. So, please send any ideas or questions to john@thespaceshot.com. That email will also be in the show notes. Tomorrow, an EVA and Messenger arrives at Mercury. I'd be incredibly grateful if you could share the podcast with your friends and family. Tag one of them and let them know about your favorite episode. I'd also really appreciate it if you could venture into the Apple Podcasts app or your podcast app of choice and leave a review for The Space Shot. A steady stream of reviews helps ensure the Space Shot is more visible in the Apple Podcasts app. As always, the show notes have more information on today's episode. You can hit me up on Instagram and Twitter. Find me at John Molnix. I'm always up to chat. You can also connect with me on Facebook. Just search The Space Shot or click the link in the show notes and you'll find me. I'm John Molnix, and I'll catch you on the flip side.